Who did this to you?
The night Ji-Jae Won saw the scar on his maid's wrist, he did something he'd never done in 10 years of running his empire. He broke his own rules. "Don't speak," he commanded, his voice cutting through the thunder shaking his mansion walls. But Mira couldn't obey. Not when she saw the reflection in the window behind him. Not when she recognized the silhouette standing in his garden. The American man who had branded her like cattle when she was 17 years old. She had fled across an ocean to escape Victor Ashford, changed her name, learned a new language, buried herself in a billionaire's estate where no one would ever find her. But he found her anyway. And what Ji-Jae discovered next would force him to choose between his billion-dollar reputation and the broken woman who was never supposed to matter. The woman hiding a secret that connected their pasts in the most devastating way possible. Welcome to a world where stories breathe. As you settle in, I wonder, where are you watching from tonight? By the glow of the Christmas tree, perhaps? If these tales find a home with you, consider subscribing. It's the most heartfelt gift a storyteller could receive this season. The night's soul drowned in rain. The sky didn't whisper. It roared. Thunder rolled like an ancient beast across the city, shaking windows and rattling bones. Lightning carved the skyline into harsh flashes of silver and shadow, illuminating the Valley residence like a haunted palace suspended between heaven and earth. Most called it South Korea's most exclusive private estate. Others called it a fortress. The marble walls gleamed cold and pristine, untouchable by the chaos raging outside. Wealth dripped from every chandelier, every painting, every perfectly polished floor. It was a kingdom built on power, discipline, and silence. And tonight, that silence would shatter. Mira Stewart moved through the servants' corridor like a ghost, her footsteps swallowed by the storm's fury. Her uniform clung to her skin, soaked from crossing the courtyard after her final duties. Most staff had left hours ago, fleeing the weather's wrath. But Mira never left early. Leaving early meant drawing attention. Drawing attention meant being seen. Being seen meant being found. She paused at a window, tilting her face toward the glass. Rain streaked down like tears, and for one stolen moment, she let herself breathe. Water had always felt like absolution, washing away the memories that clung to her skin no matter how hard she scrubbed. Her reflection stared back, delicate features hardened by years of survival, dark eyes holding oceans of secrets, hair pinned back so severely it pulled at her temples. She looked exactly like what she'd trained herself to become. Invisible, forgettable, perfectly controlled. 5 months she'd worked here. Longer than most staff lasted under Ji-Jae Won's demanding standards. 5 months of lowered gazes and whispered responses, of being nobody, of finally feeling safe. Safe. The word tasted foreign even in her mind. She whispered without realizing, her English slipping through like a crack in armor. "Just breathe. He can't find you here. He can't—" Mira. The voice sliced through the silence like a blade through silk. She froze. Every muscle locked, every instinct screamed. Ji-Jae Won stood at the top of the grand staircase, perfectly still against the storm's chaos. Black-tailored suit, dark, unreadable eyes, power radiating from his absolute stillness like heat from a dying star. He never addressed staff personally, never acknowledged their existence beyond quarterly reviews conducted through managers. In 5 months, Mira had never heard him speak a servant's name. Until now. His gaze traveled down her rain-soaked frame with clinical precision before stopping, fixed, on her wrist. Where rainwater had pushed back her sleeve, where the scar wrapped around her skin like a secret she couldn't bury deep enough. "Follow me." 2 words. No room for negotiation. She hesitated, her English accent betraying her panic. "I have to finish my duties, sir." "Don't speak." The command carried absolute authority, settling over her like a physical weight. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was the voice of a man who had never been refused, never been questioned, never been denied. He turned and walked. She followed. The corridors stretched endlessly, lined with paintings worth more than her entire existence. Her mind raced through escape routes, a habit from years of running. The service entrance near the kitchen, the garden gate behind the greenhouse, the emergency exit by the east wing. Why is he looking at me? What did I do wrong? Did someone recognize me? Did someone call? He stopped before massive oak doors she'd never seen opened. His private office, a room no staff ever entered. Sit. Her body obeyed before her mind could catch up. The office swallowed her whole. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the storm like a living painting. Lightning fracturing the darkness. Rain hammering glass like fists demanding entry. Leather furniture. Dark wood. Walls of books that smelled like cedar and old money and power. Ji-Jae didn't sit. He stood before her, hands clasped behind his back, studying her like a puzzle he intended to solve regardless of how many pieces he had to break. Where did you get that scar? Mira's throat tightened. She slipped into Korean, desperate for distance. It's old, sir. I'm fine. I said don't speak. Silence swallowed the room. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming yet strangely unthreatening. Not predatory. Something else. Something she couldn't name. You've worked here 5 months. You never take days off. You never complain. You never flinch. His eyes held hers prisoner. You speak Korean perfectly, but dream in English. Yes, the night staff have heard you. Her blood turned to ice. Until tonight, you've been invisible, perfect, controlled. His gaze dropped to her wrist. That scar tells me control is something you learn the hard way. Lightning cracked, and suddenly Mira wasn't in the mansion anymore. She was somewhere dark, somewhere cold, somewhere that smelled like gasoline and burning flesh. A warehouse, a heated metal rod, a voice whispering, "You'll carry me forever." Her fingers curled into her uniform, knuckles bone white. Ji-Jae saw it, the flashback drowning her eyes. Recognition flickered across his face. Not confusion, understanding. His voice softened, barely audible. "Mira?" She looked up, tears threatening to spill past every wall she'd built. "I do not tolerate lies in my house." The tears fell, not from fear of him, but from years of suppression finally cracking open. "Tell me who hurt you." Her voice shook like leaves in a hurricane. "You can't protect me. No one can." Something dangerous flickered in his gaze. Not anger, but something deeper, colder, more lethal. "You underestimate what I am capable of." She opened her mouth to refuse again. Lightning exploded across the sky, flooding the office with white light, and in the window's reflection behind Ji-Jae, she saw him. A figure standing in the garden below. Tall, broad-shouldered, that unmistakable stance she'd recognize in any storm, in any country, in any lifetime. Victor Ashford, her American foster father. The man who branded her. He found her, across an ocean, across 3 years of running, across a new name, a new language, a new life carefully constructed from ashes. He was already here, and Mira's world collapsed into the single horrifying truth she'd always known. There was no such thing as safe. Mira's blood turned to ice. Victor Ashford couldn't be real. She'd fled America, changed her name, learned a new language, buried herself in a country where he had no connections. But there he stood in the garden, rain sliding off his shoulders, patient as death itself. Then Ji-Jae's hand closed around her arm, pulling her away from the window, and his voice dropped to something lethal. "You know him." It wasn't a question. The most powerful man in South Korea had just seen her deepest terror reflected in her eyes, and he wasn't going to let her face it alone. Mira stumbled backward, a strangled sound tearing from her throat. "No, no, no, no!" The words spilled in English, her carefully constructed Korean identity crumbling like ash. Ji-Jae moved faster than she could process. One moment he stood across the room, the next, his hand gripped her arm, pulling her away from the window, positioning his body between her and the glass like a human shield. "You know him." Not a question. A statement carved from ice and iron. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 3 years of running, hiding, rebuilding, all collapsing into this single, horrifying moment. Ji-Jae's phone materialized in his hand. Rapid Korean commands fired like bullets. "Lock down the estate. No one enters or leaves. Eyes on the man in the East Garden. Do not engage." Throughout the mansion, lights shifted. Doors locked with electronic clicks. Cameras adjusted their angles. The fortress sealed itself. "Tell me everything." His voice left no room for refusal. "Now, whatever language you need." The words poured out. Broken English crashing into Korean, sentences fragmenting mid-thought. "My mother was Korean. Father American. They died when I was 12. Car accident. No family here, so I stayed in America. Foster system." She swallowed hard. "At 15, they placed me with Victor Ashford, Chicago businessman, rich, respected. Everyone said I was lucky." Her voice cracked. "Nobody saw what happened behind closed doors." Ji-Jae's expression remained controlled, but something shifted behind his eyes. A predator recognizing another predator's handiwork. He started slow, isolated me from friends, monitored my calls, my emails, my movements. Then came the rules. What to wear, what to eat, when to speak. She laughed bitterly. "He called it discipline, preparing me for the real world." Thunder shook the windows. "By 16, I was a prisoner in a mansion that looked like paradise. Neighbors thought I was lucky. Teachers thought I was shy." Her hands trembled. "Nobody saw the bruises because he never hit where it would show." "Until?" Ji-Jae's voice was dangerously soft. "Until I tried to escape." The memory crashed over her like a wave, drowning her in the past. "My 17th birthday. I planned everything perfectly. Packed a bag, stole cash, waited until he left for a business dinner." She closed her eyes. "I made it 6 blocks. Lightning flickered. His car pulled up beside me. He didn't yell. That's what scared me most." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He just smiled." She could still see that smile, patient, amused, utterly terrifying. "He drove me to a warehouse he owned, industrial district, no one around for miles." The words came in fragments now, ripped from somewhere deep and dark. "Cold concrete floor, smell of oil and metal. He said," she choked. "He said, 'You want to run? Fine, but you'll carry me with you forever.'" Silence. Then he heated the metal rod. Ji-Jae went completely still. Mira slowly pushed up her sleeve, revealing the full horror hidden beneath. Not just her wrist, the scar wrapped around her forearm in deliberate, precise lines. Letters burned into her flesh. V.A. Victor Ashford, his initials, his brand, his ownership carved into her skin. "He branded you." Ji-Jae's voice was barely audible, each word weighted with barely contained fury. "Like livestock." She nodded, shame burning her cheeks, despite logically knowing, none of this was her fault. He reached toward her slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You survived. You escaped. You crossed an ocean and built a new life." His gaze held hers prisoner. "That is not weakness, Mira. That is war. And you won." Something cracked inside her. A wall she'd built brick by brick for 3 years. "After the branding, he kept me locked inside for 2 months, but he got comfortable, thought I was broken." She steadied her breath. "He brought me to New York for a charity gala, showing off his perfect daughter." A ghost of defiance flickered across her face. I ran, slipped through a service entrance with nothing but my dress, homeless shelters, women's organizations, under-the-table jobs. She paused. I saved enough to fly here. Seoul, my mother's homeland, the one place Victor had no connections. Your mother taught you Korean? Before she died. It was all I had left of her. Ji-Jae's jaw tightened. Victor Ashford, Chicago, imports and exports? Mira's eyes widened. How do you... He's been pursuing a partnership with my company for 8 months. His expression darkened like the storm outside. He's in Seoul for a trade conference. He requested a meeting here, at this estate. Horror flooded her veins. His assistant asked for a tour last week, staff accommodations included. The realization detonated between them. He knew you were here, Ji-Jae said quietly. He's been hunting you systematically, using my business to find you. Mira couldn't speak, couldn't move. Victor had turned her sanctuary into a trap. Ji-Jae walked to the window, staring at the storm. I had a sister once, Soo-min. Mira looked up, surprised by the shift. She trusted a man who seemed respectable, a professor. His reflection showed haunted eyes. She came to me for help, told me he was hurting her. I was 25, building my empire. I told her to wait. I had meetings. Thunder shook the glass. She didn't have until next week. They found her body in the Han River. Grief hung heavy in the silence. I built everything on one principle, never again. He turned to face her. No one under my protection will ever be failed again. He crossed the room with purpose, not as employer, but as equal. You're not leaving this mansion until I handle Victor Ashford. He's dangerous. He has money connections. He has money. I have more. Steele wrapped his words. He has connections. I have governments. He reached for her hand, hesitated, then gently took it. Why do you care? She whispered. I'm just a maid. His thumb brushed her knuckles. You stopped being just a maid the moment I saw you walk into that storm like it couldn't touch you. The door burst open. Sir, we have a situation. The guard's face was grim. The American brought people claiming to be U.S. law enforcement. They have extradition papers, arrest warrants. Mira's world tilted. They're saying Miss Stewart is wanted for theft, fraud, and attempted murder. They're demanding we hand her over. Victor's voice echoed from the foyer below, smooth, confident, patient. I told you she was troubled. I'm just here to bring my daughter home. Victor Ashford had done the unthinkable. He'd weaponized 2 governments against her, forged documents, fabricated witnesses, and men in suits who looked official enough to fool anyone. As 3 Americans and 2 Korean officers stood in Ji-Jae's marble foyer demanding her surrender, Mira felt every wall she'd built crumbling. 3 years of running, and it would end like this, dragged back to America, back to Victor, back to the cage she'd barely escaped alive. But she'd underestimated Ji-Jae Won. When he descended that staircase, his voice silenced the room. You will not touch her. Try, and I'll dismantle everything you are. The grand foyer stretched before them like a battlefield, marble floors reflecting the storm raging outside. Lightning illuminated the faces of 5 men who had no business being here. 2 Korean police officers shifting uncomfortably, 3 Americans in dark suits projecting authority they hadn't earned. And at the center stood Victor Ashford. He looked every inch the concerned father. Silver hair perfectly styled, expensive wool coat draped over broad shoulders, warm smile that never quite reached those ice-blue eyes. Mira knew that smile. She'd seen it before he locked the warehouse door. I'm just here to help her, Victor said, his voice carrying that practiced tone of paternal worry. My daughter has been missing for 3 years. We've been frantic. Mira stood frozen at the top of the staircase, Ji-Jae's hand firm on her arm. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere left to go. She's been off her medication. Victor continued, addressing the Korean officers with rehearsed sorrow. She has episodes, delusions, sometimes violent outbursts. We just want to get her home where she can receive proper care. The lead American stepped forward, opening a leather folder. We have documentation, theft charges, fraud allegations, an assault claim filed 2 years ago. He produced papers with official-looking seals. And most seriously, an attempted murder charge. Miss Ashford allegedly tried to poison her father. All dated, all signed, all stamped, all fabricated. Victor looked up at Mira then, his smile widening. There's my girl. Don't worry, sweetheart. Daddy's going to take you home. The words made her physically ill. She leaned closer to Ji-Jae, whispering, He'll kill me. If I go back, I won't survive. Ji-Jae's grip tightened. You're not going anywhere. He descended the staircase slowly, each step radiating controlled power. The Korean officers straightened involuntarily. They knew exactly who he was. Everyone in Seoul knew Ji-Jae Won. Gentlemen, his voice was pleasant, conversational. You're in my home making demands based on papers I haven't verified. The lead American stepped forward. Mr. Won, this is a legal matter between the United States government and... Legal? Ji-Jae's voice cut like glass. These extradition documents require Korean judicial approval. Have they been submitted to the Ministry of Justice? Silence. These arrest warrants require verification through Interpol. Has that process been completed? More silence. And these agents, he gestured dismissively, I don't recognize their credentials. In fact, I'm fairly certain actual FBI agents don't conduct international arrests without embassy coordination. Victor stepped forward, smile still in place, but eyes hardening. Ji-Jae, may I call you Ji-Jae? I understand you're protective of your staff. It's admirable, truly, but... You may not call me anything except Mr. Won. Victor's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Mr. Won, then. This girl is mentally ill. She's convinced herself I'm some kind of monster. She ran away, stole from me, and now she's manipulating you with elaborate stories. You locked me in that warehouse. Mira's voice broke through, stronger than she expected. You branded me like an animal? For just a second, Victor's mask slipped. Rage flashed through those ice-blue eyes, raw and terrifying. But he recovered quickly, turning to address the room with practiced sorrow. See? These delusions. The brand she claims I gave her, self-inflicted, a cry for attention. The doctors documented everything. Ji-Jae reached into his jacket, pulling out his phone. Before you continue, Mr. Ashford, you should know something about my estate. He activated the screen. My security system records everything within 500 meters. Audio and video, every conversation, every movement. Victor's composure flickered. Ji-Jae played an audio recording. Victor's voice filled the foyer, captured from the garden just hours earlier. She's inside, the maid position. I told you it was perfect. Once I get her alone, we're taking her to the airfield. I have a private flight arranged. By the time anyone realizes she's gone, we'll be in international waters. Another voice. And if she resists? Victor's recorded laugh sent ice down Mira's spine. She won't. She knows what happens when she resists. The room went deathly silent. The Korean officers exchanged horrified glances. Even the American agents looked uncomfortable, suddenly very interested in the marble floor. Victor's face drained of color. That's fabricated. Is it? Ji-Jae's voice was silk over steel. Shall we let the courts decide? He made a single call, speaking rapid Korean. Within minutes, real Korean authorities were en route. Victor tried to salvage the situation. This is a misunderstanding. Your agents have no legitimate credentials. Your documents are forgeries, and you just admitted to planning a kidnapping on Korean soil. Victor's charm vanished entirely, replaced by cold fury. You have no idea who you're dealing with, Won. I know exactly who you are, Ashford. A predator who preys on children, a coward who brands teenage girls, a monster who thought wealth made him untouchable. Ji-Jae stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Victor could hear. I am wealthier than you will ever be, and I am far, far less merciful. As security moved to detain him, Victor lunged toward Mira. You think he'll save you? He snarled, all pretense gone. Men like him get bored. They throw away broken things. You'll always be damaged goods. Ji-Jae's fist connected with Victor's jaw before anyone could react. Victor staggered, blood on his lip. Get him out of my house, Ji-Jae commanded. And gentlemen, he addressed the fake agents, you can explain your role in this to Korean authorities. Human trafficking is prosecuted very seriously here. The mansion was quiet again, the storm finally beginning to ease outside. Mira collapsed onto a settee, trembling violently. Ji-Jae sat beside her, carefully not touching her without permission. It's not over, she whispered. He has money, lawyers, he'll find a way. My legal team is already building a case. That recording is the beginning, not the end. Silence stretched between them. What he said, her voice cracked, about being broken, damaged, is a lie abusers tell to maintain control. He finally reached for her hand. You are not damaged. You are surviving. Why did you hit him? She asked quietly. You could have let security handle it. A long pause. Because some things are personal. She looked at him, really looked, and saw past the billionaire facade to the man beneath. Your sister, you still blame yourself. Every day. It wasn't your fault. You were young. You didn't understand. I understood enough. I was just too selfish to act. She squeezed his hand. You're acting now. That has to count for something. The air between them shifted, something unspoken building. For a moment, neither moved. Then he gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. When this is over, when you're safe, I'd like you to stay, not as staff. Her heart stuttered. As what? He didn't answer, but his eyes said everything. His phone shattered the moment. He read the message and his expression transformed into stone. Ashford posted bail. He used connections at the American embassy. He stood, pacing like a caged animal. And he's filed countersuits, defamation, assault, unlawful detention. He's claiming diplomatic immunity. Mira's fragile hope crumbled. He's going to get away with it. Ji-Jae turned to her, and beneath the controlled exterior she saw something she never expected. Fear. Not for himself, for her. No. He's escalating because he's desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. He pulled her to her feet. We need to end this, Mira, permanently, and I have an idea, but it requires you to be brave one more time. The trap was set. Ji-Jae had spent 3 days building a case so devastating that Victor Ashford would rot in prison on 2 continents. Financial crimes, trafficking evidence, testimonies from other victims who finally felt safe enough to speak. But Victor wasn't going to wait for justice. On the night before the evidence went public, he made his final, desperate move. He took Mira. And when Ji-Jae received the photo, her unconscious body in that same Chicago warehouse where she'd been branded years ago, he realized the monster had taken her back to where it all began. This time, Ji-Jae would finish it. 3 days after the confrontation, security had been tripled. Guards at every entrance, cameras monitoring every angle. But Mira needed air. Just 5 minutes on the private garden terrace at dusk. Victor had help. A staff member bribed with more money than they'd see in a lifetime. A cloth over her mouth, the smell of chemicals, darkness. She woke in a place she'd hoped to never see again. The Chicago warehouse. Same cold concrete, same smell of oil and metal. Same nauseating sense of déjà vu that made her want to scream. Victor stood over her, and the charming facade was gone entirely. This was the man from her nightmares, cold, controlled, utterly devoid of humanity. Did you really think a Korean businessman could protect you from me? Across an ocean? In my country? His voice was calm, almost conversational. You've embarrassed me, Mira. Cost me reputation, business deals. That one bastard even got to some of my other projects. He crouched beside her chair, and she saw the rage simmering beneath his composure. So here we are, back where we started, where we'll end. Seoul, midnight. Ji-Jae's phone illuminated with a photo that stopped his heart. Mira, unconscious, bound in that warehouse. The message beneath, she was always mine. Don't follow, or what comes next is on you. For the first time in his adult life, Ji-Jae's composure shattered completely. He swept everything off his desk, put his fist through the study window, glass embedded in his knuckles, blood dripping onto imported carpet. His head of security found him bleeding, pacing like a caged animal. Mobilize everyone. Private jets, contacts in Chicago, anyone who owes me anything, find her. Now. His right-hand man stepped forward carefully. If you enter the U.S. without authorization, if you take action outside legal channels, you could lose everything. Your reputation, your companies, your freedom. Ji-Jae's voice was barely human. I don't care. The man paused, understanding dawning. You love her. Ji-Jae didn't deny it. I loved my sister too. I was too late for her. I won't be too late again. What Victor didn't know, Ji-Jae had anticipated this. The bribed staff member was actually a double agent. A tracking device had been sewn into Mira's clothing weeks ago. Ji-Jae's team had eyes on Victor's movements for days. We knew he'd make a move, his security chief confirmed. We just didn't know when. Ji-Jae boarded his private jet within the hour. He contacted FBI agents, real ones this time, who had been building a case against Victor for years. I can give you Ashford tonight, but I'm going to be there when you take him down. Chicago, 3 a.m. The warehouse district was silent, industrial, forgotten by the city that sprawled around it. Ji-Jae's team surrounded the building while FBI moved into position. He insisted on going in first. She's been in there for 12 hours. I'm not waiting another 12 minutes. He entered through a service door, moving through shadows with the precision of someone who'd spent months planning for exactly this scenario. He found Mira tied to a chair, bruised but conscious, defiant even in terror. Victor stood behind her, a knife glinting in low light. I knew you'd come. Men like you, so predictable, always trying to be heroes. He pressed the knife closer to Mira's throat. One more step, and I finish what I started 8 years ago. Victor expected Mira to cower, to beg, to be the broken girl he remembered. Instead, her voice cut through the darkness, steady, fierce. You branded me because you wanted me to remember you forever. Victor's knife wavered slightly. I do remember, Victor. I remember every day. She met his eyes without flinching. I remember surviving the night you burned me. I remember escaping your prison. I remember building a life you couldn't touch. I remember crossing an ocean and becoming someone you couldn't break. While she spoke, Ji-Jae edged closer, calculating distance and timing. Victor snarled, You're nothing without me. I'm everything without you. Her voice rose. And now? I remember something else. I'm not alone anymore. In one explosive movement, she threw her head back, connecting with Victor's nose with a sickening crack. The knife clattered to concrete. Victor stumbled backward, cursing. Ji-Jae moved like lightning, tackled Victor to the ground, disarmed him completely, pinned him with a knee on his chest. Every muscle in Ji-Jae's body screamed to end this permanently. His fist rose, trembling with barely controlled rage. Victor laughed through blood streaming from his broken nose. Do it. Prove you're just like me. Another rich man who takes what he wants. You branded a child. You hunted her across the world. You would have killed her. And you'll what? Beat me to death? Prove that money just makes monsters of all of us? Ji-Jae's fist rose higher, every fiber of his being demanding retribution. Ji-Jae. Mira's voice, soft but clear. Don't! He froze. She'd freed herself from the ropes, standing now, unsteady but resolute. If you do this, you become what he tried to make me, someone defined by violence. She stepped closer. He's not worth destroying yourself over. He's not worth becoming something you'll hate. Long, agonizing pause. Something shifted in Ji-Jae's eyes. Slowly, controlled, he released Victor and stepped back. You're right. He looked down at the broken man. You're not worth it. Victor scrambled up, lunged for the knife. FBI agents flooded through every entrance. Victor Ashford, you're under arrest for human trafficking, kidnapping, assault, falsifying federal documents. The list continued as agents forced Victor to his knees. His screams of outrage echoed off warehouse walls as they dragged him away into the night he'd created for so many others. The evidence Ji-Jae compiled went public the next day. Not just Mira's story. 7 other victims came forward. Women Victor had fostered over 20 years. Some had never spoken before. Mira's courage gave them permission. Victor faced charges in both countries. He'd never see freedom again. Mira watched the news coverage from Ji-Jae's Chicago hotel suite. For the first time in 8 years, she allowed herself to believe it was truly over. Ji-Jae sat beside her, close but not touching. How do you feel? She considered the question seriously. Like I can finally breathe. Like there's air in my lungs that doesn't taste like fear. 2 weeks later, back in Seoul, cherry blossoms had started blooming, soft pink against endless blue. Ji-Jae found Mira in his garden, face tilted toward the sun. She wasn't in a maid's uniform anymore. She wore her own clothes, soft, colorful, chosen freely. You don't have to stay, he said quietly, joining her. You're free. You can go anywhere in the world. She turned to him, a small smile playing at her lips. Is that what you want? For me to leave? He exhaled slowly. What I want isn't simple. Try. He stepped closer. I want you to stay. Not because I saved you. You saved yourself. Not because you owe me. You owe me nothing. Then why? His hand reached out, cupped her face with infinite gentleness. Because in 34 years, I've never met anyone who walks into storms like they can't touch her, who survives impossible things and still has room for kindness, who makes me want to be better than the man I've been. Mira's breath caught. I'm still broken, Ji-Jae. Still healing. Still... We're all broken. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Some of us just hide it better. She laughed. A real laugh, light and free. You're not what I expected. The cold billionaire thing, it's an act. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation. She rose on tiptoes, bringing her face close to his. Your secret's safe with me. He closed the distance, kissed her soft and slow. Not possession, not control, partnership. When they parted, her forehead rested against his. Stay, he whispered. Build something new. With me. What kind of something? Whatever you want. As equals. She smiled, the first full, unguarded smile he'd ever seen. I thought you'd never ask. The scar on her wrist caught the sunlight. She didn't hide it anymore. It wasn't a brand of ownership. It was proof that she survived, that she fought, that she won. 6 months later, the gardens of Valion residence were transformed for a press conference. Ji-Jae stood at a podium, announcing a new international foundation named after his sister Sumin, dedicated to supporting survivors of abuse, trafficking, and domestic violence. This foundation exists because someone taught me that protection isn't about control, It's about giving people the power to protect themselves. He turned, extending his hand. Mira walked up beside him, poised and radiant. Allow me to introduce the Foundation's executive director, Mira Stewart. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. One rose above the noise. Mr. Won, are the rumors true? About your relationship? Ji-Jae glanced at Mira, a rare soft smile crossing his face. Some things are private, but I'll say this. He took her hand publicly, deliberately. She taught me that trust isn't dangerous. Silence is. Mira leaned into the microphone. And he taught me that some people are worth trusting, even when you've forgotten how. They walked off the stage together, hand in hand. The storm that brought them together was long gone. But what it left behind, that was just beginning. Thank you for sharing this story with me. As the Christmas lights twinkle, remember, your subscription isn't just a click. It's a bell that rings out, telling me to keep writing for you. Don't let the magic end here. Subscribe, and let's journey into the new year together.